Learn more about this exciting radio broadcasting opportunity by calling WNZK Radio at 248-557-3500. Call now. We are WNZK, Dearborn Heights, Detroit, your ethnic superstation at 690 days, 680 nights.
سوا على الهواء سوا على الهواء يأتيكم عبر أثير إذاعة
صباح الخير أمريكا
من يوم اللي اتكون يا وطني الموج كنا سوا.
يمكنكم الآن متابعة برنامج سوا على الهواء على قناة ميوزك لايف عبر الدش نتورك شانل 633. البرنامج يبث لمستمعينا يوم الثلاثاء الساعة 8 صباحا حسب التوقيت الشرقي للولايات المتحدة في ميشيغان وتوليدو وأوهايو ووينزر كندا على الموجة المتوسطة wnzk 690 AM، ولمستمعينا في مناطق واشنطن وفرجينيا وميريلاند على الموجة المتوسطة wdmv 700 AM. يمكنكم الاستماع للبرنامج عبر الاتصال من أي هاتف على الرقم 702-489-0120. يتلقى البرنامج اتصالاتكم مباشرة من داخل الولايات المتحدة على الهاتف رقم 248-557-3300. الإضافة عبر سكايب US Arab Radio. للاستماع للبودكاست ushammedia.com.
Here's your host for today's program, Renée Ahee.
Good morning and welcome everyone. Ahlo sahla. I'm delighted to be your guest host for this morning's important discussion titled Domestic Violence, Devastating Destroyer of Families. By the way, since Ahlo sahla was pretty much the extent of my Arabic, our program will be entirely in English this morning. I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Hoda Amine, a mental health therapist at Apex Behavioral Health and in private practice in Dearborn, Michigan. Dr. Amine was an adjunct associate professor at Madonna University for 10 years. She received her Master of Social Work degree from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and her PhD in counseling from LaSalle University in Louisiana. An ardent activist and advocate for the rights of women, children, and the elderly, Dr. Amine is the recipient of several awards, including the Hala Maqsood Activist Award from the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee. And in 2011, she was the only Arab American Muslim woman, to be awarded the Social Worker of the Year here in Michigan by the National Association of Social Workers. Congratulations, Dr. Amine.
Shukran.
She will discuss the devastating effects of domestic violence and provide resources for protection and safe haven for victims of domestic violence. And she will also address the stigma of domestic violence, the laws protecting victims of domestic violence, and how perpetrators and victims alike can get help. But before I bring Dr. Amine to the microphone, I want to thank U.S. Arab Radio for allowing us to discuss controversial and necessary topics of importance to the Arab American community and to the community at large for open discussion. So here we are, Sawa al-Hawa, together on air. We'll open the phones, by the way, in a little bit for your comments and questions, ladies and gentlemen. We ask you to call 248-557-3300 to ask your questions live. I'm delighted to have with me Dr. Hoda Amine, a known and respected psychologist in our community. Our topic today is an emotional one, everyone, but we know that it's one that destroys families. And while Domestic Violence Awareness Month is October every year, it is necessary all year round to provide education, help, and resources to our community. Welcome, Dr. Hoda. Thank you for coming and spending time with our guests, with our listeners. In a little while, ladies and gentlemen, again, we'll be opening up the phones for your questions of Dr. Amine, and that number is 248-557-3300. But first, I'd like to give you some background information on this deeply disturbing subject. The U.S. Department of Justice defines domestic violence as a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another intimate partner. Domestic violence can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic or psychological actions or threats of actions that influence another person. This includes any behavior that intimidates, manipulates, humiliates isolates, frightens, terrorizes, coerces, threatens, blames, hurts, injures, or wounds someone. Domestic violence is a crime. Dr. Amine, what is the root cause of domestic violence?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am so honored to be asked to speak about this important subject, which is very dear to my heart. And I also like to thank Renée Ahee for taking on this big task, because this is not a popular issue and not a popular subject. It is a very popular issue, but not a popular subject. People do not want to admit about domestic violence, and they take it very lightly. To go back to your questions about the causes of domestic violence, well, first of all, I like to bring it, domestic violence is all the way across the board. It doesn't matter if they are Arabic, if they are American, if they are, it's all the way, if they, different ethnic groups, different race, different ages. So since it's all the way across the board, people have to recognize those signs. And the cause of it could be quite a few of them. For instance, poor mental health. People who have severe anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorders, depressions, also lack of support, in unable to control their temper. You know, this is the mental health issue. And it also could be substance abuse, alcohol. Could also be societal influence, such as people tend to have, like, they react to discrimination. Since we are talking about Arab Americans in the United States, could be part of being stereotyped and trying to defend themselves. And this is, I see this lately quite a lot. Also, lately, also the Islamophobia. People get in trouble because they get called certain names and they defend themselves or their culture or their religion, and they get in trouble. People have to be aware of what they say. Another thing could be also poverty, as we all know, and parental practices, the way they see this, the cycle gets repeated, their families or they witness violence since childhood, and they think that's the way you deal with issues, that's the way you solve problems. Sometimes also religious response, when someone is going through that violence and humiliating issues, being an abuse, and they seek help, and they take it lightly. They seek help through the religious people, and sometimes they say, that's okay, we'll have a talk, go back, remember you had to till death do us part, and women tend to accept that. Also, part of the power and control wheel, which you have mentioned earlier, the economic abuse, the isolations, the intimidations, the emotional abuse, the threats, and the threats, the using children, and also the entitlement. الرجال يقومون على النساء. They take this literally, that men are overpowering women. They don't understand يقومون على النساء in Arabic mean that men have the ability to be the caretaker of their families, not to abuse them.
Right.
I can also say that sometimes a woman itself accepts her role. Because maybe learned helplessness and no way out, so they just shut up and put up.
You had also mentioned when we talked about this before our program that the refugee situation is also possibly a cause, this frustration, this anger, this helplessness, and they take it out on their spouses and children.
You know, Renee, nobody want to be uprooted from their roots.
Yes.
These refugees, they were in their own homes. They were forced to be uprooted. They were forced to migrate. They were forced to leave their families behind. They were forced to acculturate into a culture they have no idea of, with no support, not much support. Maybe they get very, very little financial support, but that's not what creates a family. So they become frustrated, they lose the role. The male usually feels like, I'm supposed to be in charge of my family, and look at my wife, she's learning all these different ways about her rights. And some women, again, not all men are men and not all women are women, I see some women kind of take advantage of such situations, and she's already cannot put up with him back home. So they come here, they know she has right, and she kicks him out, and she get financial support, she takes care of her children. So that causes more problem because the male cannot accept that.
This, as you said earlier, crosses all socioeconomic and cultural boundaries. In the Arab American community, this was reported several years ago by Dr. Anahit Kulawicki and Dr. June Miller. The incidence of domestic violence was significant and increasing and included those behaviors that you've talked about. Why is there such a terrible occurrence among the Arabs and Arab Americans?
As I mentioned before, sometimes it occurs because entitlement, sometimes lack of education, unable to deal with their own frustrations, lack of support. They don't have the right people to help them acculturate or to help them being able to learn. When you are in Rome, you do like the Romans. Sometimes I've seen families that are unable to say anything about their violence, and it occurs only at home because they're afraid of stigma. They see the police coming outside the house and they're taking the husband. Usually it's the husband. It could be both as well, women as well. So they feel, no, we don't want this, bring shame to the family, because some families get shunned from the neighbors. This is a troublemaker home or something like that. So it happens in our community because of frustrations, because of lack of support, because unable to express one's opinion or in way of dealing with issues and problems, because women sometimes she have a lot of barriers, lack of transportation, lack of language barrier, lack of family support, or not family being too involved in their lives, or maybe family are absent here in the United States. Women feels the only way she has to defend is her mouth, and sometimes she doesn't filter. She expresses her feelings through screaming and yelling, and the husband is already frustrated, so they don't have that communication skills that they need to work on to learn how to solve the problems in a way that it's good for both of them.
It's interesting. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence reports that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. What are the signs of domestic violence, Dr. Hoda?
Well, the signs of domestic violence is quite a few of them.
Oh, yeah?
The first one people have to bring to their attention is a person who's always trying to hide their injuries, wearing dark glasses inside the room, trying to make excuses for not showing up to major events, always have to check with her partners on the phone, pick up the phone and tell him where she's at, with whom she's at, where is she doing. Another thing also in terms of the signs, frequent harassments in terms of entitlement. You are my wife, I own you, possessiveness, I'm jealous, I love you, you cannot have, you have to check in with me. Another thing could also be like unable to go to work or unable to go to school, and if she did, she have to be home right on time. She cannot stop and pick up a grocery because the husband right away, instead of understanding and being supportive, she failed to report where she's at and what she is doing.
It's almost like prison.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It also the temper. It happens because us as Arabs, we're very emotional people, including myself, and then that's normal because that's the culture we are born into. But the question is, when we learn how to deal with anger, learn how to do anger management, learn how far our stress level is and to take us into trouble, once we start dealing with all of this, it's easier for us to learn how to communicate, to facilitate interpersonal skills, to be able to understand our own fault rather than pinpointing our issues on someone else. Blaming is one of big part in domestic violence cycle.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question for Dr. Hoda Amine, please call us at 248-557-3300. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome to the United States. Please
Proceed to the passport control. ماذا يقول؟ إلى أين أذهب؟ ماذا علي أن أفعل؟ لو سمحت، هل تساعدني؟ ماذا قال هذا الرجل في الإعلان؟
ألا تعرف الإنجليزية؟
أعرف، ولكن أساسيات فقط.
عليك بتعلم اللغة.
ولكن أين؟ يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام، أساتذة متخصصون، منهج متميز، يمكنك التسجيل طوال العام. لرسوم التسجيل ومواعيد الفصول الدراسية عليك الاتصال بالهاتف رقم
586-797-6960 586-797-6960.
تحدث اللغة وتعلم نمط الحياة مع يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام. تعلم، تحدث وأكثر.
إذا كنت امرأة عاملة وتبحثين عن مكان آمن، بيئة صحية تعليمية وتربوية متكاملة لأبنائك، إذا لابد أن تزوري حضانة Dreamy Children Centers، مؤسسة تعليمية تربوية تقدم كافة الخدمات والبرامج الخاصة لأطفالكم من سن الرضاعة وحتى سن 12. تعمل Dreamy Children Centers لأطفالكم على مدار العام، وتقدم لأبنائكم برامج متميزة مع خدمات النقل والترفيه، مجازون من قبل ولاية ميشيغان ويقبلون FIA وبرنامج مانتسوري. تقدم وجبات غذائية صحية، أسعارهم مناسبة ومدروسة. تفتح Dreamy Children Centers من الاثنين وحتى يوم الجمعة من 6 صباحا إلى 6:30 مساء. اسألوا عن البرنامج التعليمي المجاني لعمر 4 سنوات أو زوروهم على 37373 ديكوندر رود في مدينة تروي. للمعلومات اتصلوا على 248-680-9170 248-680-9170. Dreamy Children Centers، المدرسة الحلم لأبنائكم.
Can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them 1 or 2 benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
سوا على الهوا، سوا على الهوا، يأتيكم عبر أثير إذاعة
صباح الخير أمريكا.
من يوم اللي اتكون يا وطني الموج كنا سوا.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is Renée Ahee, your host this morning for Sawa al-Hawa. I'm joined by Dr. Hoda Amine, a well-respected mental health therapist in our community. Our phones are open for your calls at 248-557-3300, and if you wish to call anonymously, you are welcome to do that as well. Jerry's on the line with us, and Jerry, hello, thanks for calling again.
Thank you, Ms. Renée Ahee. Good morning to you, and good morning to your guest, Dr. Hoda Amine. Dr. Hoda Amine, I know Renée, she know me, Layla, she know me, the producer. My name is Jerry Najib Hatta. How you doing, doctor?
Thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you, doctor. I want to say thank you for your service. We appreciate your service to the Arab Chaldean community throughout our great state of Michigan. Dr. Hoda, allow me to not be very exaggerated if I could call the domestic violence as a family terrorism. When a father beat his wife, spouse, when he is doing it to her, he is not just hurting his spouse or his wife or his girlfriend, wherever. He is actually hurting the children, if there's any children around.
Jerry, thank you.
Earlier, doctor, the abuse, it doesn't have just to be physical. It could be emotion and could be mentally, and that could leave a lot of damage to the kids when they're growing up.
You know, Jerry, you were a little bit ahead of us because this is something we were going to
No, we're
that
glad you
I'm
called.
saying, yeah, of course, and that means you care enough to share this. And I do agree with you. Domestic violence is a form of terrorism. Any type of violence is a form of terrorism because it invades people's rights and boundaries. And people have to be aware that they do have rights and they do have boundaries, but they have to assert themselves. They have to work through their emotional issues. They need to seek help. And all of this, you're going to be hearing this later on. But I do thank you so much for sharing your opinion. I think it's wonderful, especially to have a man who's sharing such things.
Dr. Huda,
Naam.
could you allow me to add a couple of more points if you don't mind?
تفضل.
Dr. Huda, just I call this is a terrorism. I don't want to involve in politics. I call the tragedy in Iraq since 2003, American invasion, Iraq become the Holocaust of the 21st century. Now, Dr. Huda, regarding your topics today, the last name that when a woman marry a man here and when the law and the regulation push the woman to carry the last name of her husband, I think, doctor, it's no different than you purchase a house and you go to the title company and put the last name on the deed paper. So it seemed to me like the husband, he think when his wife forgets her family name and put his name, he think he own her like a piece of property, like a piece of furniture.
You know, Jerry, we teach others how to treat us. For your own information, and I want to share this, my little personal thing. My last name is Amine, and Amine is my family name. I never picked up my husband's last name. You happen to be Majid. No, we gotta be role modeling others, and we gotta support one another. Do you know, Jerry? So yes, not every woman chooses to pick up her husband's name. It's her own prerogative.
And same here with Jerry, Renee. I didn't do that either. And I'd like to let Dr. Huda answer the questions because
Dr. Huda, the last thing, and that will be it. I won't take too much your time. The incident, what happened in Nicole Simpson, and the tragedy, what happened to her and to her lover, and she was divorced or separated, whatever, when O.J. Simpson did what he did, and we know he was not innocent. The blood was in his hand. What I tried to raise the question, Dr. Huda and Ms. Renee, that when Nicole tried to report it to the local police station, unfortunately, with my respect to all police, I respect them and I respect their badge, they did not look it very seriously. They were laughing about it. They think it was a joke. And look what
Jerry,
happened
unfortunately,
at the end, a tragedy.
Yes,
and
unfortunately, Nicole her life had to pay the price. But look what happened, how much advance we got since her death of June 12, 1994. By the way, Denise Brown, her sister, and I are very close friends, and we do work together to bring awareness to people on domestic violence. Yes, she did report it before, and the police didn't take it lightly. But a lot of things happen in the 80s and 90s that we didn't know. But once it starts, we start to campaign. We start to do something about it to make the change. Change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It's a process, Jerry.
Right now, right?
Jerry, thank you.
I want to thank you for taking my call, and I'll listen to you to the rest of the show.
Thank you, Jerry, for calling.
Thank you.
God bless you too.
And we're talking here about domestic violence being a crime, ladies and gentlemen. And Dr. Huda would like to talk a little bit now about the laws that are available to protect us. And Jerry, thank you very much for raising these issues because we want to let the community know that there are laws that protect against domestic violence and child abuse. Dr. Huda?
One of the interventions I'm about to share with you later on after this talk is to seek help. One of the seeking help, you can contact any local police stations. They do have advocates, support from shelters that can take the women from A to Z. They can take her, get a PPO, which is personal protective orders. They can take her file for, in case, God forbid, I don't endorse divorce, but sometimes if they refuse to have counseling, because if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to end up with the same result. They can also seek legal aid, which is also pro bono, which is free of charge. And they also, the law, they will charge, especially if the kids witness domestic violence, the law will be charging both parents on neglect issue, because these kids, they were forced to witness something they shouldn't be witnessing. So be careful when people have argument, and this is happens especially in front of the kids, and if there's any violence occur, the law is going to be going after you, both parents, not only just the perpetrator, but as well as the abused. The law nowadays, we're working very closely with the law to make sure that some of the rights is reinforced, but women and men have to come forward and reach out to us.
And Doctor, we had a conversation about why do women stay in situations where they are abused, whether it's physical or psychological, monetary or emotional.
I have a statement, and it's sometimes people get shocked when I say, but I say for all the effing reasons, which mean the fear, the family, the finance, the faith, fear of facing others due to stigma, low self-esteem, being blamed for breaking their marriage, the matrimony, the holiness of a family. So especially when we talk about fears, they don't want to get hurt, because usually once a woman leaves the house, the incidents happen after she leaves, because the perpetrator thinks they have lost that control. And in one of the videos I usually show in my classes, if I can't have you, no one else will. And then also the fear of putting, if you're going to do anything, I'm going to take the children and kidnap them and going back home. And we saw this happening quite a few in our community. Family pressure, Biswa, you shouldn't do this, you can try whatever, he got a hot temper. They always make excuses instead of the family supports the abused person and trying to help her figure out what's the best way to solve the issue. And I always keep saying, don't seek divorce. Go seek religious counseling. Go seek mental health counseling. Go work on your issues. Go work on yourself. If you don't know yourself, how can you know anyone else? And also faith. Remember, until death apart. This is in most of our vows as we get married, whether Islamically or in Christianity. We feel that, you suffer now, you seek salvation later. Allah will bless you. Allah will grant you place in heaven. Allah wants you to live in heaven here. Allah wants you to be happy with your children, because you also making that cycle be repeated through your kids.
Well, violence is violence.
Violence is violence.
And violence against another human being is against the law in this country. So whether it is a stranger or an intimate partner, we don't have license to hurt another person. And we don't have any license to abuse another person. And so what we want to reinforce in this program is that domestic violence, ladies and gentlemen, is a crime. Whether it's against a spouse, child abuse is a form of domestic violence. And children are victims directly as well as indirectly, as Doctor said. 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to violence. And sadly, direct child abuse is startlingly high. So we have just a moment to get started on this question. But what are the signs that a child is experiencing physical and or psychological violence?
There's much more than physical and psychological. By the way, the children live in a constant fear, 15 times more likely to be a victim of a child abuse, because if the father is being violent, the kids are in the way and the women fled, that the anger has to be somehow reflected on some. It's either the child, the pets. Also there's pet violence as well, the pets around the house. So this dysfunctional family, especially the children go through many aspects of violence, whether physical, where they get hurt, and the outcome of that, if you see your child, I had a child, he's 14 years old, actually a teenager, and he still bedwet his bed. Why? Because of fear, because of nightmares, because of aches and pains in their bodies that they cannot express emotionally or verbally, so they act it out while they're sleeping.
Ladies and gentlemen,
yes.
We're going to take a break. Your calls are welcome at 248-557-3300. And know, ladies, that you can call anonymously. We'll be right back.
A car accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them one or two benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
إذا كنت امرأة عاملة وتبحثين عن مكان آمن، بيئة صحية تعليمية وتربوية متكاملة لأبنائك، إذا لابد أن تزوري حضانة Dreamy Children Centers، مؤسسة تعليمية تربوية تقدم كافة الخدمات والبرامج الخاصة لأطفالكم من سن الرضاعة وحتى سن 12. تعمل Dreamy Children Centers لأطفالكم على مدار العام، وتقدم لأبنائكم برامج متميزة مع خدمات النقل والترفيه، مجازون من قبل ولاية ميشيغان ويقبلون FIA وبرنامج مانتسوري. تقدم وجبات غذائية صحية أسعارهم مناسبة ومدروسة. تفتح Dreamy Children Centers من الاثنين وحتى يوم الجمعة من 6 صباحا إلى 6:30 مساء. اسألوا عن البرنامج التعليمي المجاني لعمر 4 سنوات أو زوروهم على 37373 ديكواندا رود في مدينة تروي. للمعلومات اتصلوا على 248-680-9170 248-680-9170. Dreamy Children Centers، المدرسة الحلم لأبنائكم.
Welcome to the United States. Please proceed to the passport control.
ماذا يقول؟ إلى أين أذهب؟ ماذا علي أن أفعل؟ لو سمحت، هل تساعدني؟ ماذا قال هذا الرجل في الإعلان؟
ألا تعرف الإنجليزية؟
أعرف، ولكن أساسيات فقط.
عليك بتعلم اللغة.
ولكن أين؟
يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام، أساتذة متخصصون، منهج متميز، يمكنك التسجيل طوال العام. لرسوم التسجيل ومواعيد الفصول الدراسية عليك الاتصال بالهاتف رقم
586-797-6960 586-797-6960.
تحدث اللغة وتعلم نمط الحياة مع يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام. تعلم، تحدث وأكثر.
سوا على الهواء سوا على الهواء يأتيكم عبر أثير إذاعة
صباح الخير أمريكا.
من يوم اللي اتكون يا وطن الموج كنا سوا.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Renée Ahee, your host for this important Sawa al-Hawa edition. I'm joined by Dr. Hoda Amine, a respected mental health therapist in our community. Wherever you are in the United States, we will have some resources for you in a little bit. I want to let you know that the phones are open for your identified call or your anonymous call at 248-557-3300. Dr. Hoda, we were talking about the effect on children of domestic violence, either witnessing it or being the victim, the direct victim. Let's talk a little bit more about the children.
Sure. I was just going to reiterate what I just discussed this early, just in case somebody picked up the station now. The physical abuse is tremendous when it comes to children witnessing domestic violence. I've seen children that usually these kids are reported from school. You know, they come to school and they have bruises, and they get the social workers involved, and then they get the counselors involved. So besides having the aches not showing up to school because they have stomach problems, headaches, the ADHD, that's part of, believe it or not, because the kids cannot express themselves verbally. So their behavior tend to mimic their fears. Fatigue, unable to focus in school, aches and pains, and this is just the physical. Now the behavioral part also is some kids regress. You see kids 3-4 years old, they're stuck in their thumb, they sit in a corner, in the fetal positions. When you come approach them, they feel, they get scared. Sometimes they feel they cannot trust anybody. They don't talk. I've seen kids that are up to 6-7 years old, and it's very hard for them to speak. And when you speak to them, they're very shy, no eye contact, unable to express their feelings, and you know, that's the price they pay, because they have no control of their thoughts, their feelings, or their actions. They feel it's owned by the perpetrator. Also the behavioral, the emotional part, which is they feel sad, they feel grief, they feel shame. So I've seen kids, they don't bring their friends over because they don't want to witness what's going on at home. I've seen the kids also, they become overachievers or underachievers. Those kids that become overachievers get involved in every sports in school and every clubs in school. They top of their class because they cannot deal with their issues. And then the underachievers, they are reluctant to go to school. They're reluctant to speak to anyone. They're usually antisocial. They usually sit in the back of the class, unable to communicate with their classmates. And they're hypersensitive. Anything makes them cry, hypersensitive to criticism. You cannot say what's wrong with you. You see them tearing, they're crying. Also, some kids, they have role reversal. You've seen the elder kids taking care of younger kids because the parents are too involved in their own issues. As young as 5-6 years old, take the job of a mother, prepare food for her younger siblings, gives them cereals, gives them something to eat. They usually like to hide in their rooms. They're very afraid to talk about what's going on with them. Depression, insomnia, they don't sleep well. No. They develop post-traumatic stress disorders, like getting a flashback of the incidents of the violence, and you see them cry at night. Now, the cognitive part, they learn early on their gender role, like man's supposed to be this, women's supposed to be that. Usually, and again, I don't condone this at all, but I've seen it happening. I do have very wonderful male human beings that are the best husband in the world, but also vice versa. I've seen the woman who also is a troublemaker. So I don't want to somehow focus only on the women being abused. I've seen men being abused as well, but in a different form. So they learn early on their gender role. Women supposed to, they like living in the box. Men supposed to be rigid. They're supposed to have, they're supposed to be strong. They're supposed to be, they can't cry. They can't express their feelings. It's not manly. And if a man is changed or is sensitive, you know, he gets teased by his peers, by his neighbors, by his family. What's a wussy, whatever they call those adjectives, you know. And a woman who usually takes control, this also could get called, oh, well, you're taking on men's role. So that kind of taking on the gender role if she decides to uprise herself from the situation she's on.
What I'd like to talk about a little bit more now is how do the schools identify that with the children, and how can we as people who encounter children, how can we help? Just as the question is, how can we help when we notice that a woman is being abused? Or how do we suspect that? What are the signs that we look for?
Okay. We talked about the signs, okay, earlier on. That, you know, if she's detached, if she's isolated, if she can't talk, low self-esteem, she feels hopeless, learn helplessness, unable, feeling what's the use, it's going to get repeated. Anyway, we have to work with the woman. We have to be able to use empowerment. We have to reach out to her. She's not going to come to us. We got to be able to provide her with options. Women needs to understand there are laws that can protect her, but she has to learn to accept herself first, to be able to say, yes, I need help. We cannot tell her, yes, you need help. No, she needs to admit that she needs help, because it becomes the funnel approach. Started okay, I could do it, and once she gets to the end, three things happen. She either severe injury, or she runs away, or she might seek help. So she got to be able to know those signs so she can be able to work on herself and reach out to those who really wants to help.
Can you give us some resources that are available for victims of domestic violence, Doctor?
Well, the number one thing, since we're talking nationally now, there is the hotline, the national hotline, the 1-800-799-SAFE. I had it done, written here.
SAFE, ladies and gentlemen, stands for the 7233. I'd give that to you again.
Yeah.
1-800-799-7233.
Yeah, this is the national. As in terms of the local, like in Wayne County, there is also hotlines. They can call 888-453-5900.
Will you repeat that in Wayne County?
Yes, 888-453-5900. It's first step. They'll be able to provide her whatever is necessary, the legal help. The shelters, they usually have their shelters. They can be there, I think, for 28 days. I was invited to check their place, and it's beautiful. They have rooms. They even cater halal meat for the women who cannot eat otherwise. They have also tutoring for the children. They have playgrounds. And I hope the woman doesn't think this is where she's going to live. This is just a transitional place until she's empowered, she's able to know what she wants. The local number for first step is 734-416-1111. Also ACC, the American Chaldean Council, they have a chapter in Dearborn as well, 313-582-8465. We can always post these in things. Access, the Arab Community Center for Economics and Social Services. This is, I think the local number is 313-945-8381. They can refer her to what department they need to speak in case they need physical, they need to have health, check their health, or their mental health. They will direct them where they need to go see.
So, ladies and gentlemen, in Wayne County, there's First Step, there is the Arab American and Chaldean Council, and there is Access. And all of these are available for you in Wayne County. There are services in Macomb as well, Macomb County here in Michigan.
Yes. The Macomb County, there is a place, it's Salvation Army in Warren. It's called the Blue Water Safe Horizon. Their number is 586-755-5191. Or 810, I think they have two sites, is 985-5538.
And there's also Turning Point in Macomb County as well.
Macomb,
yes.
And you're from Macomb, so you know what's available. I know what's mostly available in Wayne. And also in Oakland County as well, there's Haven Inc.
Yes.
Their phone number is 248-334-1274. There's also in Washtenaw County. Washtenaw is in Ann Arbor area.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out their number somehow. It's just 888-411-1333. This is the Metro Center for Children and Women.
All right.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to post these on U.S. Arab Radio's website for you in case you want this.
Yes.
Also,
Safe House in Ann Arbor, 734-995-5444.
We also know that the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence has a website that you might want to make use of. And when I was on the site the other night, I noticed that there was a way to get rid of that website if you were being watched. Safe disconnect from that website. And I thought that was a marvelous addition.
Yeah.
You can go get resources around the country in whichever state that you are. You can also call your local police station. The police will always have some resources for women and children who are in this a difficult situation.
And they are trained. They're trained. They have special classes for them to know what to do, especially if they got summoned to the house and they witness any scars. They are trained to not to go along with what she says, what he says, but they have things that they look for. They have neighbors that they can ask. They have children. They also can question the children. And once they get into, they have to take them, not because they want to punish them, but they want things to cool off, and they have to stay in jail until they become arraigned, sometimes anywhere from 12 hours to 48 hours. And it becomes the people versus the perpetrator. The wife has nothing to do with it anymore. The law will pick it over, and they're the one who press charges.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us and call us if you have questions at 248-557-3300. We'll be right back.
إذا كنت امرأة عاملة وتبحثين عن مكان آمن، بيئة صحية تعليمية وتربوية متكاملة لأبنائك، إذا لابد أن تزوري حضانة Dreamy Children Centers، مؤسسة تعليمية تربوية تقدم كافة الخدمات والبرامج الخاصة لأطفالكم من سن الرضاعة وحتى سن 12. تعمل Dreamy Children Centers لأطفالكم على مدار العام، وتقدم لأبنائكم برامج متميزة مع خدمات النقل والترفيه، مجازون من قبل ولاية ميشيغان ويقبلون FIA وبرنامج مانتسوري. تقدم وجبات غذائية صحية أسعارهم مناسبة ومدروسة. تفتح Dreamy Children Centers من الاثنين وحتى يوم الجمعة من 6 صباحا إلى 6:30 مساء. اسألوا عن البرنامج التعليمي المجاني لعمر 4 سنوات أو زوروهم على 37373 ديك وندر رود في مدينة تروي. للمعلومات اتصلوا على 248-680-9170 248-680-9170. Dreamy Children Centers، المدرسة الحلم لأبنائكم.
A car accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them 1 or 2 benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
Welcome to the United States. Please proceed to the passport control.
ماذا يقول؟ إلى أين أذهب؟ ماذا علي أن أفعل؟ لو سمحت، هل تساعدني؟ ماذا قال هذا الرجل في الإعلان؟
ألا تعرف الإنجليزية؟
أعرف، ولكن أساسيات فقط.
عليك بتعلم اللغة.
ولكن أين؟
يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام، أساتذة متخصصون، منهج متميز، يمكنك التسجيل طوال العام. لرسوم التسجيل ومواعيد الفصول الدراسية عليك الاتصال بالهاتف رقم
586-797-6960 586-797-6960.
تحدث اللغة وتعلم نمط الحياة مع يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام. تعلم، تحدث وأكثر.
سوا على الهواء سوا على الهواء يأتيكم عبر أثير إذاعة
صباح الخير أمريكا.
من يوم اللي اتكون يا وطن الموج كنا سوا.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Renée Ahee, your host for Sawa al-Hawa, and I'm joined by Dr. Hoda Amine. Doctor, we were talking about the effect on children, and we were then listing the number of resources that are available. How do families break the cycle of violence?
First of all, if the families already are in the violence, they remember it's a learned behavior. The family have to admit what's going on and see all the right signs instead of making excuses or blaming the victim. Actually, we don't call victims anymore. We call them survivors. By the way, we changed that term a long time ago. And family needs to help them to go for outreach program, except the idea that their daughter, I'm going to say daughter, sometimes could be a man too, so please, I'm not trying to be sexist here. But, you know, if their daughter wants to come back home, accept her, let her talk, help her, let her know that they are behind her. Take her to places where she can seek help, you know, counseling, religion, police. Also, if some of these women are undocumented, by the way, and this is why part of the reasons why they don't leave. So since being undocumented, they're afraid to be deported, they have to seek legal help. They got to see what's going on. And I know there is a law, I think it implemented a few years ago, called the VAWA, where women can seek like a refugee,
yes,
but for violence, and that she needs to at first step know how to get these things, the shelters where they can apply for refugee status. They don't need her husband to let her stay in the United States. They can apply on the merits of violence, of domestic violence. Some of these women, they come here, they get promised, and this is what the shelters have shared with me last week. They promise them they come here on a fiancé's visa, and they don't marry them. They want to keep them. And they want to do what they want to stay with their old female significant other, but you know that's their trophy wife instead of the community. And they either marry them religiously only, and then the fear of going back. Some of these women do not want to go back because of the family. They feel if you come back, that means something is wrong with you. You might have sisters that might not be in the marriage age. They might not be able to get married because now we have a divorced daughter coming back home. Seriously,
oh,
yes.
My.
I mean, 30 plus years in this field.
You've seen
so
it all.
many things.
Yeah.
Also, women needs to know that once she makes that step, she has to be ready, emotionally, physically, mentally. Seek the right help. Get ready. Be prepared before you leave. Make sure you take your passport. You take all your legal documents with you, Social Security. Put them in a place and hide them somewhere where the husband doesn't see that way ahead of time. Because once you leave, it's very hard to come back for you to get them. Most likely, you know, you might end up in a bigger problem. Help the women to be more empowered, work on self-esteem issue, focus on positive things. Maybe if she fear of language barrier, have her seek classes. She needs a job, help her do job shadowing till she learn a little bit of skills, and then maybe try to see to work, because when you have money you feel a little more confidence. You know, work on anger issues, stress issues, post-traumatic, work on yourself, fears. The only fear we have to conquer is fear itself, by the way. When you don't see things microscopically, see things the way they are, and that can also help the person work on your triggers that get you to feel bad, your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions. That's part of empowerment. Education is another thing, learning about what's happening, the cycle of your violence, why it happened. Well, you know, it takes two, by the way. It's not she caused it or he caused it. Somehow she has to learn also to assert herself to the point where she draws boundaries.
You said earlier that we teach people how to treat us.
Yes.
On the line is Jerry with us. Jerry?
Ms. Renee, thank you for taking my call. Sorry to bother you.
It's not a bother.
Dr. Hoda, I want to raise a good point, and I'm sorry I forgot. In every story, there's two sides, east or west, north or south. And the man usually is the most aggressive on domestic violence. But let's turn the table and say the wife or the spouse, she is the aggressive. Don't you think sometimes it works better for a man or a woman, no matter where the abuse is, to take the phone, one phone call, 911, even if they spend one night in a prison, don't you think is better than they live the rest of their life in hell? Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for sharing this. yes, it takes two to tango, as I said before. If there is violence, it's a decision has to be based on you have to be emotionally and mentally prepared to call. 911 is not the only number. There is also hotline. It's 211 through the Detroit Public Library. This is a hotline for anything you want, and they will make referrals for you besides all these numbers I told you about, or you forgot them. Just call 211 and they'll be able to direct you to the right places where you need help. Violence perpetuates violence. So if the woman is the aggressive type, we teach others how to treat us. It's not after 10, 15 years you're going to stop. You got to begin to look up for these signs. There's somebody who has low self-esteem, who came from a family that's all abusive, somebody who's insecure, somebody who has mental issues, somebody who's obsessive compulsive that cannot deal with anything, low tolerance and frustrations. These signs, before you choose your mate, know what you're getting into. Because as this stays longer in the relationship, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And don't you ever think you can change people. The only person you can change is yourself.
Thank you for calling, Jerry. Dr. Hoda, I would like to talk a little bit about the obligations that we may have as observers. You already talked about the teachers, and they are required to identify or report. What about physicians and others? What about you and me as individuals? If we suspect something, is there some place we can call either anonymously? We don't want to cause trouble, but we would want to help that woman or we want to help that child.
Good question. And you, yes, me, no. Because as a professional, I have to report it, even if it's my own family.
Oh, really?
We are a bit by law to report it. Okay. Physicians as well. Anybody like nurses, social workers, school officials, anybody that deals with human services, they have to report the abuse. And once it's reported, you're not going to say abuse. You just have a suspect. And it's up to the right professionals to come and do the thorough assessment. And once they do that, they'll be able to find out whether it is truly she fell and hurt her face, or that was part of the abuse. It's not our calling, it's the calling of the professionals that comes, that summons the call.
If I, as an individual, happen to suspect something, I'm not a professional, but I notice that one of my coworkers is off a lot, or she has a black eye, or something. Is there something that I can do?
Okay. Watch their behaviors.
All
like
right.
I said some of these signs before.
Yes, yes.
And then you can take the horse to the water, but you cannot make him drink. Make sure the person is willing to work on the issue. Maybe this is the only fear of leaving the house because she doesn't want to change her financial status quo. Maybe she tried before going to the shelter and she didn't like it, staying in one room with the kids and dealing with other families that are also in the shelter. Maybe she says, this is better off, the lesser evils than maybe she still want to drive that Mercedes and wear that fur coat. Forget about her self-esteem, So you got to see what she wants and approach her in a non-threatening way with compassion and empathy. And let her know that you're there for her if you need to. But don't make her feel to talk about it, because you will see her, she will shun you.
Well, we only have 2 more minutes, ladies and gentlemen. And Doctor, what I wanted to talk about, because personally this is a very emotional thing for me, I'm enraged and deeply pained by attacks on the dignity and sanctity of every man, woman, and child. Violence is just, as a human being, we have a God-given right to respect and a life without violence or abuse. And Drs. Kulwicki and Miller stressed education is the key. We have only 2 minutes. Can you give us an idea of where people can go for education?
There's quite a few local places where they can educate you. It depends on what kind of education. Do you want to get educated on what's happening to you? The shelters is the #1 thing that they can come out. They have advocates, as I said before, in the police station, especially Dearborn, Redford, Taylor, Dearborn Heights, Canton. They do have advocates through the shelters to help these women, tell them what they do the assessment, and they see they need assessment. What do you want? Okay, education is important. Women have to also be willing to take on this. You cannot make her do. She got to look within, put her priorities in the right order. She got to think of her children. If she doesn't want to think of herself, she got to think of her future, because if she thinks, if I'm nicer, he's going to get better, he's going to get worse, because that's more. The more you give, the more he will take.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about done for this edition of Sawa al-Hawa. I am grateful to you, Dr. Hoda Amine, for being with me, for being with us, and giving us the resources. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you that line one more time. It's 1-800-799-SAFE. That's S-A-F-E 7233. 1-800-799-7233. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Dr. Hoda, for being with us.
You're welcome. There is no use for abuse. Always remember that.